Liverpool rocked by shock twists on and off the pitch. Don't miss a second. Subscribe now for instant Reds updates, exclusives, and breaking alerts. News headline: 4 options Arne Slot could consider at right back versus Sunderland following Dominik Szoboszlai's red card. Right back has been a problem position this season due to the fitness issues of Connor Bradley and Jeremy Frimpong. Dominik Szoboszlai has regularly filled in, but that will not be case on Tuesday. Liverpool's issues at right back have been taken to new extremes following Dominik Szoboszlai's red card against Manchester City on Sunday. The midfielder has acted as defensive cover in the last 2 games following Jeremy Frimpong's injury against Carragher, but Szoboszlai will be ineligible to do so again at the Stadium of Light on Wednesday after his controversial pull on Erling Haaland resulted in his dismissal in the latter stages of the 2-1 loss at Anfield last weekend. Slot also confirmed he is not expecting Joe Gomez to be back in time from his groin issue, while it looks unlikely Joe Gomez will be available following the hip injury he sustained against Bournemouth last month. To be honest, I don't expect Joe back for Wednesday, but you never know. Then he is back from being out for 3 weeks. Would you play him now? I have to make that decision. Let's see what decision we make. We have other players that can play that position as well. Dom played very well in that position again, but unfortunately he is unavailable for Wednesday. With Connor Bradley out for the remainder of the season, those options are severely limited. Wataru Endo would seem the obvious choice, given he played at right back against Carragher after Frimpong's withdrawal. However, the Japan captain has started just 1 league match under Slot, and that came after Liverpool had secured the title last season. Endo also lacks match fitness, having played just over 100 minutes in the league this term. Curtis Jones is another player Slot has previously deployed at right back, as was the case against PSV Eindhoven earlier this season. Given his need for minutes, that may represent a viable option. An alternative solution would be to select Andy Robertson at right back, although playing a left footer in that position could upset the team's balance. Oddly, Calvin Ramsey, a natural right back, is unlikely to start against Sunderland. The 22-year-old has been named on the bench for the last 10 league matches, but has never previously made a Premier League appearance. He did play in a Carabao Cup defeat to Crystal Palace in October, but Slot is reluctant to call upon him for league matches. The moment I am running out of options, he showed in the 1 game that he played against Palace and the moments he trained with us that he is good enough to be in and around our players, and then you have to wait for a chance to show this to the rest of the world, Slot said last month. But at this moment in time, I have, in my opinion, still better options than him. So it could come down to a straight selection between the more defensively astute Endo or Jones, who will invariably help Liverpool's build-up play. Slot's approach to the match, his tactical demands, and his assessment of Sunderland will determine who starts at right back on Wednesday. Liverpool transfer news as $54 million defender linked and Federico Chiesa price set. The latest Liverpool news and transfer rumors as the Reds are linked with signing a Wolfsburg center back, while there is an update on the future of Federico Chiesa. Liverpool has reportedly entered the race to sign another young center back off the back of its recent acquisition of Jeremy Jacquet. The Reds agreed a deal to sign Jacquet from French side Rennes last week, with the transfer delayed until this summer's transfer window. Over recent months, Liverpool has started to take steps to rebuild the team's defense amid uncertainty over most of the center backs that are currently at Arne Slot's disposal. Ibrahima Konate could leave the team on a free transfer this summer, while Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez are both out of contract in 2027. Last summer's arrival of Giovanni Leone, coupled with the agreement to sign Jacquet, could reportedly be followed by a move to sign Wolfsburg defender Konstantinos Kouliarakis. It is reported that Kouliarakis is valued between $42 million and $54 million. Rather worryingly for Liverpool, impending arrival Jacquet was forced off from Rennes' Ligue 1 game against Lens on Saturday night due to a serious shoulder injury. Rennes manager Habib Bey said after the game that the injury is quite serious, posing questions over how long Jacquet could be sidelined for, and it has been suggested that the problem could require surgery. Meanwhile, Caught Offside reports that Liverpool is open to selling Federico Chiesa this summer due to doubts over whether he will ever adapt to the pace of the Premier League. Chiesa, who was linked with a return to Juventus during the January transfer window, is expected to be the subject of interest from clubs in Italy this summer. The suggestion is that Liverpool would be willing to sell Chiesa for between $30 million and $36 million, which would be a success considering the Reds signed him for a significantly lower amount than that in 2024. It is claimed that Juve is the current frontrunner in the race to sign Chiesa, but that other Italian clubs, Roma and Napoli, could also be interested in the forward. Since joining Liverpool 18 months ago, Chiesa has registered 5 goals and 5 assists in 39 appearances in all competitions, but he has been handed just 2 starts in the Premier League. News headline: Wayne Rooney calls for major VAR change after Liverpool-Man City chaos. The former Manchester United and Everton star was scathing of the use of VAR in the Premier League, but he believes the correct decision was still made in the end after the Liverpool versus Manchester City chaos. Referee Craig Pawson initially allowed play to continue when Dominik Szoboszlai fouled Erling Haaland as he chased the ball heading toward the goal, before Haaland then fouled the Liverpool midfielder, who seemed likely to reach Cherki's shot and clear it. Pawson appeared ready to award the goal until VAR stepped in, overruling Cherki's effort and instead deciding to send off Szoboszlai. As a result, he will miss Liverpool's midweek match at Sunderland. According to the current rules of the game, the correct decision was made, even if it lacked a bit of common sense. However, former Manchester United, Everton, and England star Rooney maintains that drastic measures are needed and that VAR should be abolished. I think I'd prefer not to have VAR because I think it's terrible. I think it gets good decisions, of course it does, but when it gets big decisions wrong, in this case it hasn't, but when it gets big decisions wrong, then I just think it's there to get decisions right. Ultimately, it needs to be doing that more than what it is, in my opinion. I've lost the Premier League title on goal difference, so that ruled-out goal might make a big difference. It was a fun moment, and it's obviously been taken away from us. Liverpool is set to visit the Stadium of Light on Wednesday, where Regis Lebris's Sunderland players remain unbeaten this season. As Reds captain Virgil van Dijk puts it, we need better performances and finding ways to win. News headline: Carragher and Gary Neville disagree on Liverpool's Champions League chances. Liverpool faces an uphill battle to qualify for the Champions League after winning just 6 of its last 20 top-flight games to drop down to 6th in the standings. Carragher and Gary Neville have differing opinions on Liverpool's chances of qualifying for next season's Champions League. The Reds' defeat by Manchester City on Sunday leaves them 4 points adrift of 5th-placed Chelsea and 5 points behind 4th-placed Manchester United. Arne Slot's men have won just 6 of their last 20 games in the top flight, and Carragher believes that the team's form is not good enough to suggest that Champions League qualification is likely. "No, right now I don't think Liverpool will qualify for the Champions League," Carragher said on Sky Sports. "They would have to have a huge upturn in form, and the ones above them are in great form. It's a bad one. When you look at the league for Liverpool, it looks like a long way to get into the top 5 Champions League positions. There's a gap now. You can make that up, but Liverpool will have to do well in the 2 cup competitions to save the season." Contrastingly, Gary Neville thinks there was enough good about Liverpool's performance against City to suggest that the team could still finish inside the top 5. If they can somehow compartmentalize it to a bit of a freak game, which it was, they will still be fine. If they can put it in a box and not let it infect in here, pointing to his head, it is whether they are strong enough right now mentally to be able to cope with games every 3 days when challenging fixtures don't go their way. They are 5 points behind the top 4 or 5. It's not a big gap. There's a long way to go, and they will have to play most of the teams above them, so they have loads of opportunities. But there is a question mark over Liverpool. There is a question mark over whether they will finish in the Champions League places, but I still think they will. What they have to do is box that up very quickly and chuck it in a corner and forget about it. Not good enough first half, but they kept a clean sheet. Second half, dominated and got the goal and should have seen it home. The 2 goals they conceded, the second one is not like Alisson. He's a great goalkeeper and he usually reads situations really well. For him to clatter through and hit the player, that is not like him. The first one is just a flick on. It's innocuous, really. Szoboszlai was a little bit deeper, but it can happen. Some will say it is happening far too often and something's wrong, but I think they just need to try and compose themselves if they can. They have got a lot of experience with Alisson, McAllister, Van Dijk, Salah, and Gravenberch. They have players who know what to do, so can they hold it together and keep on going? If you want to show that you're not going to be impacted by today, go and win at Sunderland, which will be a tough place to go. Go and win there emphatically and be professional. That's where everyone needs to look now for Liverpool. It will be tough in there. The dressing room will be really low. News headline: Liverpool fans demand Slot sack trigger is pulled, but remain divided on Xabi Alonso appointment. Liverpool supporters appeared divided on fresh claims that the club should sack Arne Slot and appoint Xabi Alonso as his replacement, with some fans picking out three other preferred options, and amid a damning stat which suggests the Dutchman could be on borrowed time. The reigning Premier League champions have suffered an alarming drop-off this season and now sit sixth in the Premier League table, with Sunday's loss to Manchester City already their eighth in 25 games this season. That leaves Liverpool some 5 points adrift of the top 4 places guaranteed to secure a Champions League place next season, an even more bewildering failure given the huge £440 million, €505 million, $600 million that Slot was allowed to spend on revolutionizing his side last summer. Understandably, calls for Slot to lose his job are growing louder by the week, though in the wake of Sunday's Anfield defeat, a trusted Liverpool FC journalist has explained why the club's overlords, FSG, are continuing to stick by the Dutchman. However, there is no doubting that the pressure on Slot is cranking up. Over their last 20 league games, Liverpool have won 6, drawn 6, and lost 8, a win percentage rate of just 30%, and form which typically would befit a side in the mid to bottom half of the Premier League table. Now, when asked on X if the time has come for the Reds to axe the Dutchman, fans have offered a mixed response. One fan replied, "Yes, bring him in. It literally cannot be worse than this." Another agreed, posting, "I voted for Alonso to take over as soon as he became available." A third added, "Get it done, pull the trigger now." A fourth added, "I'd vote for pretty much anyone at this point, seeing as I wanted rid in October and have been proven right for the 5 months since." Another fan argued that sporting director Richard Hughes should also fall on his sword if Liverpool finished 7th or lower. Everyone but those who have a say. If we miss out on the top 7, Hughes should go with Slot come end of the season. This might be acceptable at Bournemouth, but not at the most successful club in England. A sixth fan also suggested last season's title triumph, which some feel has saved Slot from being sacked already, should be credited to predecessor Jurgen Klopp. Next Liverpool manager, fans not entirely convinced by Xabi Alonso. However, despite the growing clamor for Slot to be sacked, not all Liverpool fans were entirely on board with a move to appoint Alonso, who is out of work after leaving Real Madrid last month. Urging caution, one fan said of Alonso, "His team already played us this season and got spanked, and so did his Leverkusen team last season." Another suggested someone else by adding, "Luis Enrique in the summer please, with Steven Gerrard as the interim." A third agreed, stating, "Well, judging by some of the comments on this post, it feels like I'm not the only one who's not all in on Alonso. I just don't get the clamor for him to be our next manager." A fourth wants to see the return of Klopp to Anfield, commenting, "Klopp as interim until season end, anyone?" Very few felt, though, that Slot deserves longer at the helm, though one fan did state, "No, Arne deserves a summer of adding to a ridiculously small squad." Despite all that, one fan is not expecting FSG to end Slot's reign anytime soon, commenting, "I can't see the hierarchy at the club doing anything anytime soon. They will probably wait until it's too late in the season." However, our correspondent Fraser Fletcher confirmed last month that Alonso has already said yes to a sensational Anfield return if the opportunity arises. Carragher backed into a corner over Slot's sack, eye-catching Konate update. Meanwhile, Jamie Carragher has backed himself into a corner with his stance on whether or not Liverpool should sack Slot, and after Sunday's defeat, the only option is for FSG to wield the axe. In other news, Ibrahima Konate's stance on signing a new contract at Anfield has angered Liverpool, who've just launched a countermeasure. Elsewhere, Curtis Jones will demand firm assurances over his long-term future at Liverpool before the summer, with the midfielder increasingly concerned that the club are preparing to move him on, as Team Talk sources confirm interest from Tottenham and other Premier League sides.